Okay, we're going to go through Ecclesiastes, the rest of the book. We went through the first six chapters, 1 through 4. Everything was meaningless, and then he switches over and trying to find meaning. And I think it's interesting that people are interested in finding meaning in life, but most people can't find it, and that's because they're not looking in the right places. They try to blame other people for their not having meaningless, and some will try to blame Christians for their not having meaningless when Christians got the answer for finding meaning in their life. But anyway, everything was meaningless, and he kind of went through his life how he tried to find different meanings and things, and he had everything, and he was rich, and he had 1,000 wives and concubines, and he had everything you could want. But he said, I tried to find in all these things. I didn't find meanings in those, and he's going to end up here. But now he's gone to wisdom, but he has different conclusions that he came to in his lifetime. And this is, I like to use the sun. He talks about the sun, sun, like 29 times in this book. And under the sun, he's talking without God, but I like to say with the Son, son. And actually, it's in the Old Testament in several different places. My favorite is Proverbs 30, verse 4. And it says, "Who has ascended to heaven and come down? Who has gathered the wind in his hand? Who has bound up the waters in his cloak? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? Well, his name is Yahweh for the Old Testament. And what is the name of his son? Surely you know." So it's saying Yahweh has a son. And so when I talk about the son, son, it's not total foreign to the mindset of the Old Testament believers. And so, anyway, he starts off in 7. He gives us a little wisdom. He says, "A good name is better than perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth." So, the name part is kind of your character, and it's I what your mind is, whether you have a godly mind and how you're living your life. It's not mere reputation. It does mean your reputation with men, but what you look like in the eyes of God, with whose names the reality are one thing. So we're going to have a name in heaven that's going to be our reality, and God's going to give it to us. And the example is Isaiah 9 verse 6. "For us unto us a child is born, a son is given." The child was born, that's Jesus, and the son was given, that was the Jesus, the eternal God. The son is given, it pre-existed the child. "And the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace." So Jesus is our Father, he's our Prince of Peace, he's our Counselor, he's our Mighty God. And that's verse 1. Verse 2, "It is better to go to a house of mourning than to be to a house to feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart." So the point of these verses is that it is wise to bear the brevity of life in the mind as one lives. So when you go to a funeral, you realize, hey, my days are numbered too, and I'm not going to live forever. And so we think we're preparing to go spend eternity in heaven. But he's looking at it a little bit now, just under the earth. And anyway, then he goes on, verse 3, "Frustration is better than laughter, because the sad face is good for the heart. The heart of a wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure." So he's talking about you're better off to realize that there's problems in the world, and that there's bad things in the world, and you're living in more realities, is what he's saying. And um, and it's a good thing. And sorrow shared may be better, that bring more inner joy. And so mourning, if you have things that you're mourning, you're better off sharing them with other people and getting that mourning out and sharing it with God. And that's how you get rid of it. If you just try to go and ignore your mourning and go to a big party and get drunk, you're still going to have this inner problem that you got to deal with, and you got to deal with this problem, is what he's saying. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the songs of fools. So he's saying, listen to the people, and don't listen to the singers that are giving you all the nice songs that sound really good. And you better listen when people give you some good wisdom, is what he's saying. Like the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is laughter of the fools. So it's just like wood burning under a pot in a fire, and so laughter is nothingness. It's meaningless. This too is meaningless, is what he says. Extortion turns a wise man into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart. So, uh, extortion, if they try to get you to do something by saying you're going to be in trouble if because of this, and that's going to turn them into a fool, and a bribe is also going to turn them into the fool. And both adversity and prosperity tempt people to abandon a wise lifestyle for one of folly. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and the patience is better than pride. And so this is it's better at the end. It's easier to take at the end, and but you got to have uh, patience when you're going through these things, and don't take pride in them. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. So be slow to anger, and this is in your soul, and just control your emotions, stay relaxed. It's not good for you, it doesn't improve your thinking at all. Do not say, "Why were the old days better than these?" For it is not wise to ask such questions. So don't focus on the past. Don't focus on how bad things are compared to then. And so the problems are impatience and pride, verse 8, anger, and verse 9, and dissatisfaction might lure a person from the submissive attitude that is part of the way of wisdom. So if you're saying things were better in the past, it's kind of a prideful thing. Verse 11, wisdom like inheritance is a good thing and benefits those who see the sun. And when he says see the sun, that means they're still alive this time. That they're still alive, and then it benefits them. If you're dead, it doesn't benefit that doesn't benefit you at all. Wisdom is a shelter, as money is a shelter, but the advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves those who have it. So prosperity can be a good thing, especially if the prosperous person behaves wisely and uses it properly. 13, consider what God has spoken. Who can straighten what he has made crooked? Only God can straighten what he has made crooked. What times are good, be happy, but when times are bad, consider this: God has made the one as well as the other. So good times and bad, just realize it's all part of God's plan. You got to trust him through this. Therefore, no one can discover anything about their future. So you're not going to know what's going to happen tomorrow, and you can kind of assume what's going to happen, but don't worry about tomorrow. Just trust the Lord every day. And we cannot understand why God uses adversity and prosperity as he does. A man or woman of faith trusts God nonetheless. Therefore, we should enjoy the times of prosperity and remember the times of adversity that God is in control. Romans 8:28, for all things work together for good for them that love God, that are called according to his purpose. Verse 15, in this meaningless life of mine, I have seen both these, the righteous perishing in their righteousness and the wicked living long in their wickedness. So he doesn't understand this, and why didn't the right people live longer, and sometimes they die early, and sometimes we're all on the good Lord's clock. Do not be over righteous, neither be over wise. Why destroy yourself? So don't try to be self-righteous. Try to build up your righteousness more than it can be, and over wise, thinking that you're wiser than you are, and just being wise is realizing you don't know it all. And so that just destroys yourself, is what he's saying. And do not be over wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? So he's saying that sometimes you can die early because you do bad things. And a lot of people we know are big into drinking and doing bad things in their lives, and they die early. And in verse 17, do not be over wicked or die before the time. 18, it is good to grasp the one and not the other. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes. So trust God and don't try to be over righteous. Don't try to be over wicked. Don't try to be anything. Just try to be a follower of God. Solomon was not saying in these verses that a little wickedness and folly are a good thing, the so-called golden mean people talk about. Rather, he's advocating living life in the light of God's judgment, but not falling into the trap of believing in rigid retribution. Verse 19, wisdom makes one wise person more powerful than 10 rulers in a city. So he's going to give an illustration. But indeed, there is no one on earth who is righteous, no one who does what is right and never sins. Well, there was one who's coming, and that is the Redeemer, the Lord Jesus Christ. But he's saying no one else has this, and we only get our wisdom from God. Verse 21, do not pay attention to every word people say, or you may hear your servants cursing you. So don't eavesdrop on other people. Don't try to sneak up on people and listen to people and things like that. He's saying avoid this thing because it's just going to make you mad if you find these things out. For you know in your heart that many times you yourself have cursed others, probably when we weren't so wise. All this I tested by wisdom, and I said, I am determined to be wise. So that's the most important thing. You got to have the right wisdom, the wisdom that comes from God. But this was beyond me. He couldn't do it because he was looking in the wrong places. He was trying to build it up himself. 24, whoever exists is far off and most profound. Who can discover it? This is saying that you're never going to find it on your search on earth by yourself. Even Solomon, with all his wisdom, could not ward off all adversity. He did not have sufficient wisdom to do this, and no one else can do this either. So I turn my mind to understanding, to investigate, and to search out wisdom in the scheme of things, and to understand the stupidity of wickedness and the madness of folly. So he's realizing that they're just a problem. When he tried to do these different things, he didn't find meaning, and now he's realizing it in verse 25. In verse 26, I find more bitter than death the woman who is a snare, whose heart is a trap, and whose hands are chains. The man who pleases God will escape her, but the sinner will be ensnared. So As in Proverbs 1 through 19, Solomon personified folly as a woman. The Hebrew word for man here is Adam, is generic, referring to people rather than males and females. So I think this was probably true some in his life where he got trapped by all these foreign women that got him worshiping the foreign gods. But he's giving us wisdom here, and he's talking about we got to not avoid wisdom, but avoid the folly, and you become enslaved to these follies, and so that's what Satan wants to do. He wants to ensnare us with this foolishness. And 27, look, says the teacher, this is what I have discovered, adding one thing to another to discover the scheme of things. While I was still searching but not finding, I found one upright man among 1,000, but not one upright woman among them all. This only have I found. God created mankind upright, but they have gone in search of many schemes. So he's saying that the follies of this world isn't going to get it. Men aren't going to get it, but there's only one upright man, and that's the Son. That's Jesus Christ. That's God. And you're not going to find it searching it anywhere else. In context, Solomon was talking about God's plan, failing to fully understand God's scheme of things. People have turned aside to their own explanation of things. They try to find meaning apart from God, and they're not going to find it. Chapter 8. These chapters are shorter. 7 is the long one. Who is like the wise? Who knows the explanation of things? A person's wisdom brightens their face and changes a hardened experience. This chapter begins by lauding wisdom, and it ends by showing that it has limitations in verse 17. So if you have this good wisdom from God, it's going to change your appearance and it's going to brighten your life. 2, obeying the king's command, I say. So he's talking here about obeying him, and that's true. In Romans chapter 13, it says to obey government, and I think that's a true thing, but I think you can apply that to obeying God's commands too. But he's talking about himself here and government. I say, because you took an oath before God, do not be in a hurry to leave the king's presence. So be patient until you're told to leave. Do not stand up for a bad cause, for he will do whatever he pleases. So don't stand up for bad causes in front of him, and it's not a wise thing. Since the king's word is supreme, who can say to him, "What are you doing?" Whoever obeys his command will come no harm, and the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every matter, through though a person may be weighed down by misery. So just be relaxed in the front of the king and just do what he says. Since no one knows the future, who can tell someone else what is to come? As no one has power over the wind to contain it, no one has power over time of their death. As one is discharged in the time of war, as no one is discharged in time of war, so wickedness will not be released those who practice it. So you're on the good Lord's clock. He's going to take you in the time, and wickedness is not going to release you. All this I saw as I applied my mind to everything done under the sun. There is a time when a man lords it over others to his own hurt. Then too I saw the wicked buried, those who used to come and go from the holy place and receive praise in the city where they did this, this too is meaningless. So a lot of people, even preachers, are have the do the right things on the outside, but they have a problem on the inside. And he's saying here, and they're he might be in the right place to find meaning, but they don't find the meaning. And when the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. So justice delayed is justice denied, is what they say. And actually, in their uh, society, they had if somebody killed your brother, you could go over there and kill them. And if they did it not unintentionally, they could go to a city of refuge and be safe there. But there was a lot of justice being carried out at the time, and surprisingly, the crime rate was very low because of that. 12. Although a wicked person who commits 100 crimes may live a long time, I know that it will go better with those who fear God, who are reverent before Him. So he's saying you live a long life, it doesn't mean anything. It's better to live a life fearing God. Yet because the wicked do not fear God, it will not go well with them, and their days will not lengthen like a shadow. So they're not going to live longer because of their evilness, and they're going to live the time that they were allotted. There is something else meaningless that occurs on earth. The righteous who get what wicked deserve, and the wicked who get what righteous deserve. This too I say is meaningless. So there's some. This verse provides instances of exception to the retribution doctrine, and so sometimes the good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to good people, and good things happen to wicked people, and bad things happen to wicked people, and it's not something you got to focus on. You got to focus on the Son, and SON, in order to have a meaningful life. So the enjoyment. I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun to eat and drink and be glad. The joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of their life God has given them under the sun. So, how do you get the enjoyment of life? You live for the Lord, and you live to glorify this Lord. And when I applied my mind to know wisdom and to observe the labor that is done on earth, people getting no sleep day or night. So anyway, they don't have this meaning, and they are not relaxed. And there was a story of a man in, I think, the Soviet Union, and he was commanded to crawl on his hands and knees around a little circle, and he was miserable. But he decided he's going to just glorify the Lord, and he kind of made it like he was dancing in front of the praise band at church, and rather than crawling around there, and he said he enjoyed it. And so I think when you're going through tough times, you got to keep praising the Lord, and that's the way uh, you're going to find meaning even in bad times. 17. This is the conclusion. Then I saw that all that God has done, no one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Despite all their efforts to search it out, no one can discover its meaning, even if the wise claim they know, they cannot really comprehend it. Solomon again recommended that the enjoyment of life is not in a pleasure mad way, but in a sense of enjoying the fruits of one's labor. This joy will make labor more palatable. We should receive each day's joy as God's good gift and to rejoice in them. So that's what he's saying. Before the positive emphasis of the final 3 chapters can be emerged, we have to make sure that we have we shall be building on nothing short of hard reality. In the case, we should be cherishing some comforting illusions. Chapter 9 confronts us with the little that we know, then the vast extent of what we cannot handle, in particular with death, the ups and downs of fortune, and the erratic favors of the crowd. Verse 9. So I reflected on this and concluded that the righteousness and the wise and what they do are in God's hand. But no one knows whether love or hate um, awaits them. All this refers to the general pattern of God's inconsistent retribution that Solomon had discussed. Even though he could not predict whether a given person would experience prosperity or adversity, he believes all people are in God's hand. He sovereignly controls individuals' destiny. Verse 2, all shall share a common destiny, the righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad, the clean and the unclean, all those who offer sacrifices and those who do not. It is as it is with the good, so with the sinful. As it is with those who take oaths, so with those who are afraid to take them. This is the evil in everything that happens under the sun. The same destiny overtakes all. He's talking about death. And the hearts of people, moreover, are full of evil, and there is madness in their hearts while they live. And afterwards they join the dead. In verse 4, anyone who is among the living has hope. So you're all going to end the same way, but you got hope, and you got to figure out what the hope is. And the hope is in the Son. S-O-N. Even a live dog is better than a dead lion. And the ancient Near East people despised wild dogs, and they honored lions. So he's saying, hey, the dog still has hope, even though you hate this guy, and he still has time to get right with the Lord, is what he's warning him there, because otherwise everything else has the same result. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, and their name is forgotten. This is under the sun without God being involved. And so he's saying, hey, it's going to be all meaningless after you die. And their love, their hate, their jealousy have long since vanished. Never again will they have a part in anything that happens under the sun. So he's saying they're gone from this place. Verse 7, go eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do. Always be clothed in white, and always anoint your head with oil. So this is being right with God, living a righteous life. And enjoy your life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun, all the meaningless days, for this is your lot in life and in your toilsome labor under the sun. So you might find a little meaning with your family and different things, but it's all meaningless without the right, proper orientation. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, for in the realm of the dead, where are you going, there is neither working nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom. So we know that there is going to be work, and we're going to enjoy whatever God gives us to do in heaven. But he's saying, hey, enjoy it now, because there's nothing later. Verse 11, I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift, or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, but time and chance happens to them all. So sometimes you might be the fastest one in the race, but you might trip and fall or something. You might be the strongest in the battle, but you're going to make a mistake and get blindsided. And so he's just saying there's going to be bad things that can happen to all. Verse 12, moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. We're on the Lord's clock. As fish are caught in a net or birds are taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. So the reason for this is that everyone is subject to misfortune that we cannot anticipate or control. And so there's going to be evil times, and the solution will be at the end. You got to trust God and fear Him. 13, I also saw under the sun this example of wisdom that greatly impressed me. There was once a small city with only a few people in it, and a powerful king came against it, surrounded it, and built large siege works against it. This might have really happened, but it's an illustration for us. And verse 15, now there lived in the city a man poor but wise, and he saved the city by his wisdom, but nobody remembered this poor man. So he figured out a plan to defeat the king, and he saved the city, but nobody remembered him for what he did, is what he's saying. So I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are no longer heeded. So when in time of trouble, they listen to him, but once things start going good again, they're not going to listen to him again. The quiet words of the wise men are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. So that's the illustration there, that just good things, there might be good things that happen because of wisdom, but it's just never going to be appreciated on this earth. Chapter 10, as dead flies give perfume to bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. So there's thinking dead thing overcomes good smell, and so folly overcomes wisdom and honor. So avoid the folly. The heart of a wise inclines to the right, but the heart of a fool to the left. So this is about politics in our time. And actually, it's talking about looking at foolishness versus wisdom. And anyway, verse 3, even as a fool walks along the road, they lack sense and show everyone how stupid they are. So you can see it in them, the way they act. It's just bad. Verse 4, if a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offenses to rest. So don't get provoked by your boss when he yells at you. Just go ahead and keep doing your job. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, the sort of error that arises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high places, while rich occupy uh, the low ones. So don't think they're just because they're in high places they're going to be wise. Verse 7, I have seen slaves on horsebacks, while princes go on foot like slaves. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it. Whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. And so bad things are going to happen to people. And whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. Whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge is unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. So all these bad things happen. You don't know what's going to happen, and you might do a good thing and it's not going to end up good, but having some good wisdom is going to help you. If a snake bites before it's charmed, the charmer receives no fee. Words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, but fools are consumed by their own lips. So they don't want to listen to wisdom, fools. They like their own folly. At the beginning, their words are folly. At the end, they are wicked madness. And the fools multiply words. No one knows what is coming. Who can tell someone else what will happen after them? So don't listen to what the fool has to say, and no one knows what's going to happen in the future. The toil of fools wearies them. They do not know the way to town. And woe to the land of those kings whose king was a servant and whose princes feast in the morning. And so, blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth and whose princes eat at the proper time for strength and not drunkenness. So, just having the right people in the right place is very important with the proper wisdom. Through laziness the rafters sag, because of idle hands the house leaks. A feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, money is the answer for everything. Do not revile the king even in your own thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom, because a bird in the sky may carry your words, and a bird on a wing may report what you say. So this is where the expression says a little birdie came and told me comes from. But he's just saying, hey, don't have bad thinking. It's not good. It just kind of messes you up and makes you sick and makes you not think well. Verse 11, ship your grain. Let's see. Across the sea, after many days, you may receive it returned. So this is having good investments. He goes on, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. So diversify. You don't know what disaster may come upon the land. So this is some wisdom that he's giving to us, and it's true. And so this is things that he did in his lifetime. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. So just things happen, and we don't know why it happens, but just kind of prepare beforehand before they happen. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. So you got to be focusing on planting, you got to be focusing on reaping, and don't focus on the clouds, and don't focus on the winds. Just do it at the proper time. And as you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in the mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. So he's saying all this meaningless stuff, all this stuff you do is just, you're not going to understand it. And God's the one who created everything, and he's the maker of all things, and he understands, and he's in control. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, whether both will do equally well. So he's saying, hey, you can sow your seeds in the morning and then do it in the evening, and you can't tell which is going to work out better. Just do them both, and just see how the results come out, but just keep doing them both, because sometimes it might be better to do it in the evening and sometimes during the day. Morning. Put in a nutshell, the theme of this passage is this: we should use wisdom boldly and carefully, cannily yet humbly, taking joy from life while remembering that our days of joy are limited by the certainty of death. The teacher has discussed how we should act in view of the uncertainties of life. We must recognize these certainties, but must plan in such a way as not to be thrown off balance when the unexpected happens. Now the teacher goes on to speak of the certainty of growing up and growing old. So light is sweet and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. So you're still, when you're still alive, you can still see the sun. However many years, however many years anyone lives, let them enjoy them all, but let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. So he's saying, hey, you're going to live the life, enjoy it, but there's going to be bad times, and just that is meaningless. The meaningful part comes from trusting in the Lord. You who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart, and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. So then banish anxiety from your heart and cast off your troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. So get rid of your problems, don't dwell on them, and live your life to the fullest. But he's saying don't live a foolish life, live a life that is pleasing to the Lord. To older people, it may seem to be too risky to advise a young person to walk in the ways of his heart in the sight of his eyes, yet the advice is coupled with a reminder of responsibility before God. This is not to take away with one hand what is given with the other, because a sense of responsibility belongs to youth just as vitality does. In all his writings, Solomon never advocated sinful self-indulgence, only the enjoyment of life's legitimate pleasures and good gifts. So we made it to the final chapter now, and just a few verses, and this is the final wisdom. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. So this is, again, you got to keep remember that you are created, and you're going to have to answer to Him one day, and you'll live to glorify Him. Before the days of trouble come and the years approach, when you say, I find no pleasure in them, you're going to find some pleasure in your years as youth only if you remember your Creator, and then you can have a fulfilled, meaningful life. But it's going to be meaningless without that. And then when you get older, you got to keep remembering your Creator, is what he's saying. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, he's talking about your life now. And this is before you die, and the clouds return after the rain. And so this is after you die, but he's talking about a little bit before you die, starting in verse 3, when the keepers of the house tremble. And so this is talking about your legs and your body. And when you get older, you start trembling and you get Parkinson's degrees. And then he says the strong men stoop. That's when your shoulders and arms start getting worn out and weak, and they start stooping. And when the grinders cease because they are few, and those are talking about your teeth. You kind of lose your teeth when you get older. And those looking through the windows grow dim, so you start losing your sight, is what he's saying, when you get older, when the end is coming. In verse 4, when the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, it's talking about you're going to lose your hearing. When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. So sometimes you get old, you don't sleep through the night, you hear a little noise, and you wake up even though you really can't hear that well. So some of us know about that, I think. And when people are afraid of heights and dangers in the street. So when you get old, you don't want to stand on stools and do certain things, and you're going to fall and get hurt. And dangers in the street, walking in the streets, and maybe some people are going to rob you that you wouldn't be worried about as a young man. And when the almond tree blossoms, so that's when your hair grows gray. And fortunately, none of us have that. And so, anyway, the so it's talking about your hair uh, growing gray when the trees blossom, and the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire is no longer served. And so, this is talking about you're no longer uh, interested in pleasurable things anymore. We won't go any deeper into that. And then people go to their eternal home, and the mourners go to the streets. So after all that, people are going to die. They're going to go to their eternal home. He's not talking about nothingness. He's giving you advice that you're going to go on to your eternal home. Remember him before the silver cord is severed, and that's your lifeline is severed, and the golden bowl is broken. That's your mind stops working before the pitcher is shaken at the spring, and so that's when you need to wear uh, diapers. And the wheels broken at the well, so that's wearing the diapers when you get older. And dust returns to the ground it came, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. And so that's the end, and your body's going to go to the ground, but your spirit's going to go to God, is what he's saying. And meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. So that's uh, his conclusion about the world apart from God. You're just not going to find meaning. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to people. He pondered and searched out and set many in order, many proverbs. So he's saying, hey, this teacher is the same one who set those proverbs, and don't think that those proverbs aren't true. He's just trying to give you a different look at things right now, is what he's trying to say. And the teacher searched to find the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. So he's saying the proverbs that I wrote are true. We'll have to go through the proverbs sometime. The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails given by one shepherd. So these are goads. The shepherd would goad you on to move when you need to move, but sometimes he holds you down when you need to be protected. And we have our shepherd, and sometimes when we need to get moving on things, and if we're moving the wrong direction, he'll take care of us as long as we're walking with the one shepherd, the Lord. And be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them, of the making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. So the answer, you're not going to find this wisdom in these books unless they're telling you how to be right with God. And the only book you really need is the Bible. That's how he speaks to us. Now all that we've heard, here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. God is the creator God. We're going to have to answer him today. We live for him, and we live in light of him, and we got to do his commandments. We got to love him and love our neighbors, and this is our duty. This is our purpose. This is our meaning. And for God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. So we're all going to be for the Bema seat, and we're going to be judged for how we lived our lives, and that's kind of the story of the teacher in Ecclesiastes. And C.S. Lewis, I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. So we have this truth, and this truth helps us find the meaning in life, and this is the only place we're going to find it. So we'll go ahead and finish this